A gute Woche, everyone. We began the Farbrengen this afternoon that today is 11 days in the month of Adar. The Mishnah, in the beginning of Masechta Megillah, begins with Megillah Mikra, with Aleph, and the Mishnah goes on with days and so forth. That means that there were possibilities in the times of Mishnah and times of Gemara that the Megillah should be read on 11 days in the month of Adar. And the Mishnah goes on to explain that in those days there were people that lived in villages. The Mishnah refers to them as the Bnei HaKfarim. They lived in a kfar, in a village. And they did not have a service on Purim. They did not have to read the Megillah to them on Purim. These people, however, would always go into the city on Mondays and Thursdays. So the closest Monday and Thursday to Purim, once we have already reached 11 days in Adar, they could read the Megillah. They could read the Megillah in the city, in the town where they would be. There they would hear the Megillah. And they would be Vayikra Megillah. What does this show us? This shows us that from the 11th day in Adar, we already have a very strong and obvious Shabbos to do. And that day is today. But it says it's not the same time. We write a Maimah from the Rebbe Maharash on the theme. The Rebbe Maharash brings out, without the following speakers, we'll discuss several times throughout the Farbrengen today. Rebbe Maharash brings out that the Yidden, for an entire year, stood on a level of Mesiras Nefesh. In other words, from the time that Haman came out with his decree, until the next Purim really happened, took a year's time, almost a year. So the feast that Haman had with Esther, that was Pesach. So it means that from Pesach, that was when a few days before, that is when he intended to destroy all the Yidden at that time. And when was the nest? The nest was the following Adar. So actually the story went on for a year's time. So this entire year, think about the Rebbe brings it out in Torah as well, the entire Jewish community at that time stood in the Madrega of Mesiras Nefesh. Which later also the Rebbe brings out, also based on what the Rebbe says, that no one in Klal Yisrael during this entire period of time had any machshavas chutz to show him, had any outside thoughts, in other words, had any improper thoughts. All of Klal Yisrael for this entire period stood at a very, very high madrega. So with this introduction, the Rebbe Maharash brings out that what is the meaning of Yud Aleph? Yud Aleph is Vav Kei. Shem Hashem is Yud Kei, Vav Kei. Deficit, Kei. You don't pronounce it, so you have to read his name. A Kei is numeric value of 5. So 6 and 5 is 11. So this Megillah Mikra, Yud Aleph, this really reminds us, this has to do with part of Shem Hashem, of the Rebbe's name of the Voskin. And how does the Mishnah go on? Mishnah continues that the Megillah could be read from the 11th until the 15th. Where do we read on the 15th? In Yerushalayim, the city that's surrounded with a wall from the days of Yeshua ben Nun, they observe Purim on the 15th of Adar. So, like Yerushalayim today as well, they celebrate Purim on the 15th. What's the meaning of the 15th? Number 15, that's Yud Kei. Yud is 10, and Kei again 5. So again we have an numeric value of 15. And Rabbi Maharash explains that it begins, we're talking about going L'mata L'mayla, going from lower to higher. It brings out that when the student that there is level of Hanistorah, there is hidden things, and then there is Midrash, there are things that are revealed. Naturally, Nistorah is a lower Madrega. Miglois is a higher madrigal. When we have things revealed in front of us, that means we have the things, we have whatever we are talking about, we have access to it, we understand it, we can grasp it. So Vovke, so to speak, it relates to the story. And Yudke relates to Miglois, to what is revealed. That brings out that first the Aveda begins at Yud Aleph, meaning the Aveda begins with Vovke. And from Vovke we reach up to going higher and higher till we finally reach the highest Madrege, which is the level of Chazarah. And this also has a Shaykhah. Purim is the Indian of a Mulchama with Amalek. Haman was a descendant of Amalek. So regarding Amalek, there's a passage, Yod al case call, again with the Yud case. We don't pronounce it. Mulchama Lashem ba'Amalek Mideir Doyer. What is the Indian of Yad al case call? Yad is Yudalet, which is again the 14th, that's the Purim, and Yud case Yud case. The Rebbe says, there's a hand al case call. Case is Melossi Share. A hand over Hashem's chair, Mulchama Hashem ba'Amalek Mideir Doyer. So Chazal explained that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chair is not complete until Amalek is totally defeated. But again, regarding our union, here we have a Shaykhah, and it has another indication how it brings out how the union of Mulchama Hashem ba'Amalek, or the union which is the celebration of Purim, is Farbrengen with the same of Yudke. We go a little deeper in talking about hidden things and revealed things. If we are to look at it, there are two Yom Tovim which go hand in hand, which we always talk about at the same time. And that is the Yom Tov of Chanukah and the Yom Tov of Purim. The Yom Tov of Chanukah is very obvious to see the Neis Hashem. There's a little jar of oil, which normally it would have lasted only for one night. And what happened was, instead of it lasting for one night, it lasted for 8 nights. So everybody saw the Neis in it. However, when we're talking about Purim, the entire Neis of Purim was in a revealed way. Besides, in a hidden way, sorry. Forgive me. To such an extent, the Megillah that we read on Purim is called Megillah Esther. That was her name. The mother says, where do we have an indication for Esther? Esther min ha-Torah minayin. Where do we have an indication for Esther in Torah? So what does the Gemara bring? The Gemara brings the pasuk. V'onoichi hafter askir panai. The Rebbe says, you will hide his name. In fact, if you go through the entire Megillah, it seems like a story, and everything led one step led into another, and one could take it and not realize the Yad Hashem that's in it, not to realize the miracle that's in it, to such an extent that it's even brought out in Sfarim. But notice, in the entire Megillah Esther, Hashem's name is not mentioned. Why? Because here we have in Eden how it is in the story, it is hidden. And what is the Aveda Yid? From an area, from an Eden, where Geplachat, where godliness is hidden, our Aveda, when it comes to him, is to reveal it. That's the whole meaning of saying Yudke, to reveal the Geplachat that is in this Eden. And we begin right away with a tremendous meaning of Simcha, especially the Simcha regarding other stars from Rosh Chodesh. And we already passed the Shabbos in the month of Adar. And now we are already getting closer to Purim. Today we are already on the 11th of Adar. As we mentioned earlier, the 11th of Adar, we already have a direct passage to Purim to such an extent that for certain people the Megillah could have been read on the 11th of Adar. And here we come this tremendous meaning of Simcha. Simcha and Purim is so great, it's much greater than any Yom Tov. Simcha and Purim is at a level of Adar Yada. It's brought to, there's a Chazal, Kol HaMoyadim B'Kelim, when Mashiach will come, all Moyadim, all the Yom Tovim will no longer exist. Chazal say, except for Purim. Purim will be an exception. And Jesus already is, because regarding Purim, it's brought out in the Megillah, The Gemara says, Lo Yosef li Zichron, Lo Yosef li Zarom. The commemoration of Purim will never part the children of those Jews that lived at that time in Shushan. It means that Purim is something which we will celebrate at all times. To have a proper understanding, that meaning with Shabbos for the Sikha, the Rebbe didn't mention it today, but students explain why Taka, when the Mashiach will come, will all be on and Purim no longer exists. Well, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't observe Pesach. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't observe Sukkot. Let's not take it out of its context. All the Yemen of Torah mitzvahs are eternal, and they will remain at all times. However, students explain, when the Mashiach will come, the world will be elevated to such spiritual elevation. As we find in the Rambam at the end of the Pesach, he describes what the world will be like then. The entire world will be full of wisdom and understanding godliness. So therefore, what's the meaning of a Yom Tov? I said a Yom Tov is, it's a revelation of Getlachas. That's the whole meaning of a Yom Tov. We say that when the Mashiach will come, we will not feel it. Why? Because every day we will be swamped with revelations of godliness. So that's the past. Kol HaMe'ed, in the Torah, all the Me'edim will become bottled, will no longer exist. When the Mashiach will come, what does it mean it will no longer exist? It will be as an expression of Chassidus, Tishraga b'Tihare. Like in the middle of a bright afternoon, you go and you light a candle. You need that candle. Candle's not adding anything. Sun is shining, it's a bright afternoon, and there's an abundance of lichtigkeit. Okay, Chassidus explains regarding what Yom Tov will be like when the Mashiach will come. However, in the same Chazal, where it says that all the Yom Tovim will become bottled when the Mashiach will come, it says there's one exception, which is Purim. And the Rebbe is concluding that, especially this year, that this year is a Shnasa Ibur, it's a leap year. And in the leap year itself, we are already turning quite a few months into the leap year, so it's definitely proper to arouse simcha by everybody, and noshim the task. Because really, when someone wanted his decree, had the intention of his decree, he also aims for everybody. So now when there's a union of simcha, the simcha has to involve everybody, anoshim the task. And how did Haman express himself? Haman said, Yeshnei am echot. When he started off, Shachasher, his proposal, he used the expression, there is one nation. The Pizza, the Torah, they're Na'amim, they're scattered all over, amongst all other countries, amongst all other nations, and he was referring to Yidden. So what's the pshat in the expression, Yeshnei am echot? This, he refers to the Yidden that they are the one nation. What's the pshat, the one? They are the echot, the am echot, that is tied with Hashem echot. So every Yid is tied with Hashem echot. So we're talking now about arousing the simcha amongst everybody. So every Yid, everyone who's only a member of Klal Yisrael, who is tied with the Rabbeinu Shalom, because the am echot is tied with Hashem echot. So everybody has to be in simcha, and especially the simcha of Purim, which is the simcha of Adar or Yada. And the Rebbe will take us out of Golos, and during this year, then we will have the real simcha, because as we know, regarding halakha, when is the real simcha? When there's a panam chadashis, when there's a new faith brings new simcha to all participants. So when the Mashiach will come, that is when we will have the real simcha, and again with the participation of all of Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe is continuing that being that we are before Purim, we have to make proper preparations before Purim. And the preparations have to be in a way that they're affiliated with Avos Yisrael, with the Haftarah V'Yachal Kamecha. And first of all, to see to it that every Yid can celebrate, has the means to celebrate Purim properly, and enjoy the Purim, the feast of Purim, and all other inyanim that come together with Purim. And what throughout the entire Farbrengen, actually, in every Sikha, the Rebbe kept on stressing the importance of seeing to it that Yidden observe Purim properly. The Rebbe says there's a big union in reading the Megillah with more participants, with many participants. The expression goes, the Rov Om Hadras Melech. When there's a roib when there are a lot of people participating, this is Hadras, this is glory to the Melech, to the king. The Melech, the Rebbe says that all over the world, in all parts of the world, wherever there are Yidis, to put an extra stress, an extra establish to make sure that Yidis participate in Kriyas HaMegillah. And we know that regarding Kriyas HaMegillah is so important to the extent that Chachamim tell us Mevatlin Talmud Torah Kriyas HaMegillah. That even those that are busy learning Torah, nonetheless they also stop learning, and everybody has to participate in Kriyas HaMegillah. And we're Mevatel Talmud Torah also. Because Talmud Torah is something that somebody's sitting and learning, he's learning privately, or they're learning with two people that are learning together. We are Mevatel Talmud Torah so that we can have a Mikra Megillah with participants, Roivam, with many, many participants. You know, the Rebbe is really stressing that we do everything only possible to see to it that we can congregate and bring together as many people in groups wherever only possible to see to it that people listen to the Kriyas HaMegillah. That brings out something interesting. That the mitzvahs of Purim, the Inyanim that we have to do Purim, all have to do with the letter Mem. Mishloach Monos, double Mem, two Mem, Mishloach Monos. Matonos Lev Yainin, again a Mem, Matonos. And the main word is the Matonos. The main thing is to make sure that we give. Then we come to the feast. The feast, the celebration of Purim, which is celebrated in the feast, is also a meaning of Mishta. And Mishta feast also begins with letter Mem. In fact, the feast was a key factor in the whole union of Purim, because the feast is that famous feast which Esther prepared for Achashverosh and Haman. If that would have gone off the track, if that wouldn't have gone the way Esther planned it, then Chas v'Shalom we wouldn't have been able to come to the nest of Purim. So the union of Mishta, the union of the feast of Purim, is something which is extremely vital, extremely important. It's a major component in Purim. And this meant the Rebbe says, leaves, when all of these things are celebrated properly, this man leaves to take us in the yad right away will be the coming of Mashiach. The Mashiach is also a man, and the yad immediately is also a man. Teichet means something that should happen soon. Teichet, miyad means right away. When something happens right away, it means mamish. Mamish right now. Again a mem. And all this has to do with letter mem, especially when we're talking about it on Shabbos. Shabbos B'chlal is a day when we stand in a level of menucha. Rest, peace, relax. There are various levels in menucha. Notice that when we say in davening, when Esther, which we say on Shabbos, there's a difference in the expressions. There are different expressions said in Shemona Esrei Friday night, and there's a difference as it said Shabbos, and there's a difference as it said Shabbos to Mincha. Friday night, we say, we have a notice this, but it's important. Well, let me get one of these attention today as well. Friday night we say, V'yonuchu vo kol Yisrael mekati shmecha. It's Shemona Esrei. In it, comes on Shabbos, all Yidden will rest in it, in the Shabbos. Vo is a feminine expression. It comes to the Shemona Esrei and Shabbos by day. We say the same expression, but we say V'yonuchu vo, and you will rest in him again Shabbos. Comes to Mincha, we also refer to the rest which we do on Shabbos, but Mincha we say V'yonuchu them, and it will rest in them. In other words, Mincha is already a combination of bo and boy. Combination of the Lashon Zohar and Rosh Hashanah, and comes to Mincha. Mincha is always a higher Madrega. Madrega of Mincha Shabbos is a very high one. How is it called? It's called the level of Raiva. The Raiva is a very appropriate time. Raiva, the Raiva is an Aramaic expression which means a time of a will, of a desire, a rotten, an eight-rotten. Notice something else. Talking about it, when you open down the Kodesh, Shabbos to Mincha, before the Rich Shanei, we add on Vanis Vilosi Lacha Hashem Eis Rosen. He's the same as Raiva the Raiva. The time of Mincha of Shabbos is a very special time. It's a time of Eis Rosen. In other words, here we have a combination of all Madregas. Nuchu Zom. Everything is already included. That's the Madrega which we are reaching when it's the Madrega of Shabbos Nesinu. May it be that this is discussed now at this opportune time. And today we read the Chazarah of Vayikra and Moshe. Let this lead to it that every Yiddish should be a Vayikra and Moshe, because every Yid has a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu within him. And from the Vayikra and Moshe we come into the next Chazarah. The next Chazarah is Pasach Tzav. The Rashi tells us right away at the beginning of Tzav, Ein Tzav, when did it use an expression of Tzav? Tzav is an expression of zirus, a special quality is brought out in the word of Tzav. And when is the word Tzav used? When there's a meaning of Chazarah Kis. Chazarah Kis means a loss of money. When an expenditure is involved, the Torah is telling us Tzav, to make sure that we do it properly. Though an expenditure is involved, that's the meaning of Tzav. What's the meaning of Chazarah Kis? Simple meaning is, when it's a loss for the kiss, a loss for the pocket. Here's the meaning of an expense. However, what's the meaning of a pocket? A pocket is a type, something is there, but it's not seen, it's covered. When the Rebbe is concluding, without Yisrorim, that Mashiach is here. That Mashiach is like in a covered box, like in a pocket, like in a casket. However, what are we told? Mashiach is in the safe, in this locked safe, locked with a lock and key. But every Yid has the key. Every Yid has the key to open. That through his mindset, through the mindset of a Yid, it will lead to it that Mashiach will be here. And from the open hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that there come Muslim Gashmi. Gashmi to Kafir, Gashmi to Kamid. And again, Rabbi stressing the letter men to everyone. And how does this come? This comes through mindset of Torah. Again, letting men, and especially taking into consideration that now it's the 40th year, Chazarah, letter men, since the passing of the Frierdiker Rebbe. This is something that the Rebbe spoke about at length around his class. With regard to Chazarah, we find in the Torah that the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he spoke to the Yiddish after being 40 years in the Midbar, he brought out the point that after 40 years, it's Notzon Hashem Lachem. Now the Rebbe has given you Leiv Lodas, V'inayim Liros. The Rebbe has given you a heart to feel, to understand and feel, eyes to see, and ears to hear. In other words, when it comes to Chazarah, comes to a special moment where we are given more koiches, we are given more strength, we are given special koiches to be able to see and to hear and to feel and to understand, to be able to do things properly. Here the Rebbe brings in, there's a pasuk, Yirek whom we can. It's empty amongst you. So, see the type is. Yirek who, if one is empty spiritually, he can, it is because of himself. It is his own fault when one is empty spiritually. And maybe the Rebbe was alluding to this, that we should not be at such a level of Yirek whom we can. Our emptiness, our voidness, should not be because of our own fault, but on the contrary, we should do everything within our power, all the right things and all the proper things, with all of these will lead to the coming of Mashiach. Mamish, again, with men. Mikha Megillah, right? Mikha Megillah, again, men. Rebbe referred to a pasuk. There's a pasuk in Navi. Pasuk in Navi is Marba HaMishra. And there the Navi is talking about Geula. And there we have an interesting exception. It's the only time in Tanakh Normally, letter mem is used in the middle of a word, and schloss mem is used at the end of a word. Here is the one and only time in Torah where there is a schloss mem used in the middle of a word. And that's the word L'marbe HaMitzvah. And this pasuk has to do with Vayikra. So again, what do we see? How letter mem is emphasized strongly when we're talking about Vayikra. So this is again going back, again at the same time to bring to everybody's attention that the union of Megillah should be in a way of Roivam Hadras Melech. What did Haman say to Achashverosh? That the Yidden are Mefuzer and Mefeirat Bein Ha'amim. Haman was hinting that there was no Achdus amongst Yidden. So what did he say? Yidden are spread all over. This is an indication that there is lack of Achdus amongst Yidden. However, what are we accomplishing? We are bringing Yidden together. We are uniting Yidden together. We are creating an union of Achdus, showing that Haman was wrong. Just like Haman was wrong when he thought that at a proper time to implement his plan would be in the month of Adar. Why? Because he knew that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away in the month of Adar. However, he was wrong to the extent, true that Moshe passed away in the month of Adar. However, Moshe was born on the same day on Zion Adar. The Mela Adar is a mazel b'kechodesh for Yidden. It's a positive month for Yidden. So the same thing Haman thought that Yidden are not in the proper level of Achdus, Yidden are on a level of Mefeirat Bein Ha'amim, but on the contrary, by us uniting together and by us congregating together and being Yidden together and the Roivam Hadras Melech, we will show the Rebbe said, but prove Haman wrong, and show HaKadosh Baruch Hu that on the contrary, amongst Yidden there is definitely Achdus. Especially in consideration that Purim comes as a continuation to Matan Torah. As a Yidden in the Megillah, the Kibbutz HaYehudim, Eisach HaRechelu Lasi, that what happened by Neis Purim, that is when the Yidden reinforced their commitment to Matan Torah. They began by Matan Torah. However, when was it reinforced? It was reinforced by the Nes of Purim. So the Mela, just like by Matan Torah, Yidden felt, Mala Halam, Be'ema B'yira, how do Chazal tell us, Be'ema B'yira, Beretes B'ziyah, that the same shivering and the same Iberlebens, in other words, the same fear and trembling which Yidden had by Matan Torah, this same thing we are going through every time a Yid learns Torah. Every time a Yid learns Torah, we go through this thing. From the Mela, being that all Yidden were by Matan Torah, Medrash tells us that all Neshamas participated in Matan Torah. So the Mela now, again, we're talking about a union that has a shaykhus to Purim, it again has a shaykhus to every Yid. Because Purim is Farbrengen with Matan Torah, and Matan Torah has a shaykhus with every Yid. So now, in other words, actually the entire Farbrengen, to summarize what happened in the Farbrengen, the Rebbe is stressing how we are to reach to every Yid on Purim. So we know that all from all different angles, the Rebbe is bringing out how every Yid has a shaykhus to Purim. We know that if so, we have to see to it that every Yid participates in the Yemen that has a shaykhus to Purim. Purim is connected to Matan Torah. And we know that just like by Matan Torah, all the Neshamas participated in Matan Torah. What Rebbe always brings a medrash that all the Neshamas that lived at that time that were present, they definitely participated. But all three of the Neshamas were present. The case of the Rebbe, the person was very interesting. The Rebbe mentioned it many times. Of Jacob, people that will convert to Yiddishkeit, and later generations, they too participated in Matan Torah. So you may say that somebody is only Yid, he has a shaykhus to Matan Torah. So you know, the being that Purim is tied with Matan Torah, because by Purim they reinforce the commitment to Matan Torah. So it's again a proper time to make sure that every Yid, we reach out to every Yid, the Yid that's even the Catholic table, the other end of the world, to make sure that they participate in the Yemen of Purim. Even though regarding Purim, the expression, the Megillah is Mishpacha, it's a yontif which we celebrate it as families, but nonetheless, Nonetheless, it's also an opportune time to reach out to other Yiddish. The Rebbe spoke later in the Farbrengen, which is here as well. The Rebbe spoke later that there are many communities, there's a minute, that in addition to people celebrating Purim in their own homes, with their own families, that if they want to celebrate it at home, it goes out and goes into homes of neighbors, it goes into homes of friends, and brings the sin from the Leviticite into the houses of the neighbors and the friends. And what happens? So first of all, people are standing outside, and people that observe it, and people see it. So in the middle of this awakens the spark of Yiddishkeit within those people that are seeing it. But yet more than that, we see how Yidden are uniting, and one is going into the house of another, bringing simcha to the house of the other, and the person's house whom he's saying anything. Two joins, and then they together go into the house of the third person, and all this is a custom in many communities, and it's something which is very proper and very advisable, because this is a way of bringing simcha, the simcha of Purim, and involving more and more Yidden to participate in the simcha of Purim. So, you have to compare it like many communities that have this minute of simcha Torah, that people dance Hakadosh Yeshua, and Misameach Yeshua, but then nonetheless, they go from home to home, from house to house, and they celebrate simcha Torah. So the same thing we see regarding Purim as well. So the middle of the idea of Purim is to reach out, to make sure that you reach out to every Yid, and make sure that the mitzvahs of Purim are fulfilled, even though we're talking about a mitzvah of Matanos Farbrengen, one of the mitzvahs of Purim, and that is to give tzedakah to the poor. And at times, the meaning of giving tzedakah to the poor is something which should not be done in public, because maybe the recipient of the tzedakah may become embarrassed if he's getting it in public. The Rebbe says that's no problem, because what we could do is we don't have to give it to the poor person directly. We could give it to the Gabbai tzedakah, to the person who's in charge of collecting tzedakah, and this person who's in charge of collecting tzedakah, he will definitely make sure that the funds reach to those who are in need of them. And talking about this Indian, we're talking about tzedakah, the Rebbe says it's again an opportune time to remind about an Indian which we once spoke about, to make sure that in every kitchen there is a tzedakah picture that affixed to the kitchen. And it's there in a way of serious, in a permanent way, in a way that it's not being moved around from one place to another, but it's there permanently. And in other words, the tzedakah picture is there on a permanent basis. The housewife knows that that is where she puts in her tzedakah, and if members of the family put in their tzedakah. And then when somebody comes into the house and they need to give him tzedakah, so right away you can go to the picture, and from this picture you can take right away and give the tzedakah. Talking about Megillah, we're talking about Purim. The Megillah is the meaning of Achashverosh. Achashverosh plays a major role in the Megillah. Achashverosh is Meloshin Tachlis, Meloshin darkness. But it says, it means there are those amongst us who are at a level of Tachlis. In other words, we're at a level we're dark. Meloshin Tachlis, Meloshin Tunkel, Meloshin dark. And this is how Achashverosh is every year, constantly. In other words, we're not just talking about Achashverosh who was in the times of the Megillah. There's Achashverosh who this year, and that is when it uses Rahman al-Islam, dark, spiritually, that's the meaning of Achashverosh. But the brother prophet, Al Pema, Chayra Pasuk Kemer Navi, don't say I am dark, it's not a darkness. It's a something. She's a sun in Hashemet. What's the meaning of sun? The meaning of sun is, what is the sun stand for? Hashemet Shemogin Hashem Elohim. The Rebbe is compared to the sun. The Mela, what it says, let this darkness disappear. Let this darkness not be there. And if we do have to have an union of darkness, what's that darkness? Darkness, tunkelkeit, coloredness, that's the union of inconvenience. Let the inconvenience be to the extent that we learn an Indian Torah, we have a kasha and we do not have the answer for it. And let us come on. In other words, let us get away with the union of darkness in a mild way. In this mild way that when we have a kasha, we do not have the proper answer. And when we come out of darkness, that will mean that our kasha, our union, which is not understood, will become understood. The Rebbe says the biggest kasha that we have, the biggest question that we all have is Ad Mosai. How much longer are we in Golan? And what is the answer to this question? The answer to this question is from the hands of Hashem that the Rebbe says to take us out of Golan. And that will be The answer on the biggest question will be when HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take us out of Golus. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take us out of Golus, then we will come to a time, great revelations which will be La'asad Lavei. La'asad Lavei, then we will have also Kriyas HaMesim, though it is brought that it will take 40 years from coming of Mashiach to Kriyas HaMesim. But it says, let us hope that we will not have to wait 40 years. Perhaps it will happen within a period of 40 days or 40 hours. And as soon as after Mashiach will come, things will go in a different speed. So let us hope that this as well will not be something that we will have to wait for 40 years until it will happen. But it's concluding again, the pasuk in the Megillah, Yosnei Am Echad, there's just one nation. And what do we mean by one nation? The nation that has a shaykhus to Echad, the nation that has a shaykhus to the Rabbeinu Shalom, to the Aleph, to the Aluf and Shalayim. And what does the Megillah say? The Megillah says, what did Haman say to Achashverosh? It says, Dosei HaMelech Einam Listen. This one nation does not listen to the commandments of the king, meaning to the king of Achashverosh. However, to the rules of Melech Malchei HaMelechim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they will listen. And then later, when they will listen to these rules of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this will lead to the coming of Mashiach. And here the Rebbe is lending the expression, the Mother says regarding why do we observe Purim and other things. The Mother says, because to being close, Nismach Geula Legeula, to being close, 2 months that we celebrate a Geula. We will celebrate Purim and other things, and then it will come Nissi, we will celebrate also the meaning of Geula, which is Yitzias Mitzrayim, which is Pesach. The Rebbe is using the same concept, but applying it different. The Rebbe says, when Mashiach comes now, Mashiach comes today, we will have the Geula of Mashiach, and close by, together with that, we will also celebrate another Geula, the Geula of Purim. And let Mashiach come right away, and have the Beis HaMikdash. The Mikdash will be with us, and the Beis HaMikdash will be with us. We will be Makrif Korbanos. And now we are in the time of Mincha, but Tefillah now is in the place of Korbanos. Soon Mashiach will come, and we will have the Beis HaMikdash, so then we will have Korbanos. But again, the Rebbe says it does not mean that then we will stop gathering. Then Tefillah will be out of style. In other words, then we will have Tefillah together with Korbanos. And all this will happen through the coming of Mashiach. And regarding Korbanos, there's an expression that together with all Korbanos, there is a need for salt. A kol Korban attached with melech. What does the mean of salt? The meaning of salt is permanent, eternal. In other words, when you want something to stay, you want something to hold out, then when it's salted, when it has a lot of salt, that gives it the power, that gives it the strength that it can be able to hold out. And maybe the same thing, I think learning this expression, in other words, that to get the Beis HaMikdash, to have the Beis HaMikdash in a permanent way, and especially that this is discussed right here in this shul. This is a shul, a bayis gadol, a big house, especially from the Gemara. Why is it called gadol, a big house? Because this is a house to megadlim by Torah, and a house to megadlim by Tefillah, a house where davening is done, and a house where learning is done. Especially this is the place, this is the shul where the Frierdiker Rebbe was a Nazi gadol, all regarding to the expression of gadol, and this is where he lived his last 10 years, the Alma game in this world. Through the awakening of all of us being Yisrael, this will all lead to the coming of Mashiach. Then the Rebbe continues, this Shabbos is called Pasuk Zocher. We read about Amalek, and the Torah tells us that we have to remember Zocher is Amalek, to remember what Amalek has done. And then the Torah repeats again, Al Tiskach, do not forget. What was really Amalek's intention? Amalek's intention was, Answer Kolcha Baderech. So how does students explain what did he want to do? He wanted to cool Eden. He wanted to make them cold. He knew that he could not take Eden and totally take them away from the Eibusher. He knew that he cannot do. But what was he able to accomplish? What he wanted to accomplish was to cool them down. To take a Yid up from bed, to take him off the path of Yiddishkeit that he couldn't do. But to make him cold. That is exactly what Amalek's intention was. And here, Rebbe is combining two types. What is the pshat answer? Kolcha. He wanted to make you cold. Then there's another expression, mikra mikra. If you say it's a happening, it happens, it so happens to be That's also mitzvah, no less than kolcha. What is it? What means that? We even believe that everything is hashgacha pratis. Nothing happens by itself. There's nothing that happens without any reason. What was our Mullich's philosophy? What did he try to tell you even? It happens. When things happen, has a meaning. The meaning of hashgacha pratis. And the matter of both of these types can really go hand in hand. When a person is looking at things that it's not hashgacha pratis, when a person is looking at things that it's mikra, it's happening. The same type is used in the Pentecost, in the speaking that, because the opposite of bracha, which will be given Chazarah, if we do not do the proper things, there's a person there in Telchu in Keri, which means if we will go against the will of Hashem. Jesus type is there the same way. In Telchu in Keri, you will go with me, and you will type that what's happening is mikra, it's happening by itself. It's not a meaning of hashgacha pratis. And this Chazarah is the key to the work. And this was our Mullich's philosophy. The Mullich's philosophy was to bring them, to set the minds of Yidden that when they see things happening, don't say or think that there's a Yad Hashem behind it. Say that it's mikra that's happening by itself. And when once he will be successful in his filling, if he uses such a concept, this will automatically reach out to Kolcha, the other type, to make Yidden calm. Really, they wouldn't realize the Yad Hashem, they wouldn't follow and observe the Yad Hashem, and they look at things without type, and they become cold. They become cold to Torah mitzvahs, they become cold to the Rebbe, become cold to the whole union of Yiddishkeit. And the Rebbe brought, in the Fichas of the previous Rebbe brought that in Swedish Rebbe's father, the Rebbe Rashab, was a young child, and he was playing together with his brother, the Razah. He had an older brother, students called him the Razah, his name was Rabban and Ari. They were playing together, and amongst, you can imagine what type of conversations they had amongst themselves, even though they were children, they were being raised in the house of the Rebbe, and they followed constantly students coming to the Rebbe, to their father, the Rebbe Marash, and they were discussing amongst themselves what a Yid is. Especially they were the ones that were seeing, observing how people are coming to their fathers with environment, to gain warmth. That's what does a chassid come to a Rebbe for? When a chassid travels to a Rebbe, whenever it is, once in a period of time, a chassid comes to a Rebbe to gain warmth themselves. But as it was children, they had a conversation amongst themselves. What is Ayid? What is a Jew? And they came to the conclusion in their childish conversation that Ayid is a stick fire. Ayid is a piece of burning fire. And fire, and when two Yidden get together, this was their conversation. When two Yidden get together, they help one another, just like fire can never become extinguished. When fire meets fire, on the contrary, it gives strength one to another. And this was their conversation when they were children, how a Yid is a stick fire, and the fire of a Yid can never become extinguished. And the Rebbe refers to another speech of the Swedish Rebbe. There's another speech talking about the union of Zocher. This is the Sabbath of remembering. The Swedish Rebbe would say many times that his father would ask him when he grew up, he would refer to things, what do you remember? Every person has in his life certain memories, certain childish memories from childhood, certain memories from other periods of time, which leave an impact on a person. And his father, the Swedish Rebbe's father, was always trying to refer to these memories that he should never pass from him. So therefore, at many occasions, he would always he would always ask him, what do you remember certain things which happened in the Zocher? This is what we're talking about today, Shabbos is part of Zocher. The same thing, now that we are before Purim, there's a Zocher message to each and every one of us. And the Zocher message is that every Yid should know, and every Yid should remember that we are a member of the Am Echad. We are a member of this chosen nation. Of what chosen nation? The nation that has a Shaykhus to Echad. And a Yid and Yiddishkeit cannot pass. A Yid and Yiddishkeit constantly go together. It's not two separate things. And the Mele, to such an extent, the Rebbe uses the expression that even at night when he's sleeping, what type of dreams does he have? He also has dreams without an element of Yiddishkeit. Why? Because he's dreaming about his own self. A Yid and Yiddishkeit is aimed. And it's natural that a person dreams about himself. So the Mele, what type of dreams does he have? Eichet Chaloim is ready Yiddishkeit. The Rebbe expressed himself.
again urging about the importance of everybody participating in Purim. Everybody has seen in previous years that Sai here, Sai in Israel, people traveled, the people went to other cities. Traveling to other cities was very successful, so it should be done again. And we really cannot estimate, we really have no idea how great and how deep these accomplishments can be. The Rebbe expressed himself that if there's one Yid in a place, and to bring 9 Yidden to this place, so that this one Yid who is over there should listen to the Megillah. There's an expression in the Rambam. The Rambam says that through one good act, one Pa'ula Teva, which a person does, and a person could never know which is this act. This can be so effective that it will weigh over the scale and will have an effect that will bring the Yeshua, bring assistance to him and to the entire world. Remember, we could never know what this act is. It could very well be that by bringing 9 people to a place where there's only one Yid, and there's no more Yidden there, so that we have a meaning so that the Yidden could read the Megillah and hear the Megillah and introduce them to all the Inyanim of Torah, and we can accomplish tremendous things with that. This is customary always to refer to an Indian in the Chazarah. At the end of the Farbrengen. But this week's Chazarah is in Vayikra. Rashi tells us that this expression of Vayikra is an it's an expression of warmth which the Rebbe use, Malachim use, and the Rebbe uses to Nevi'ah Yisrael. However, to Nevi'ah or Goyah to Nevi'ah, we do not find an expression of Vayikra. How did the Rebbe refer to Bilam? The Rebbe refers to Bilam Vayikar Elokino Bilam. To Moshe is Vayikra. What is the difference between Goyim and Yidden? This one Aleph. By Goyim there is no Aleph, and by Yidden there is an Aleph. What is the Aleph? It's a famous word. It's brought, you see this many times. Actually, I think this word originated in the Alter Rebbe exposing a Malamed to teach his son the Mikkel Rebbe. The Mikkel Rebbe was a young boy, and the Alter Rebbe chose him Malamed, a teacher for his son, and he told him at that time, as the story goes, you have a mitzvah supporting your family. I have a mitzvah teaching my child prayer. I will help people. So your mitzvah, you help people. So my mitzvah, I will repay you as a Malamed for my son. So I will help you and you will help me. And at that time, he started telling them, you'll be teaching my son Aleph Beis, so what is an Aleph? And he told him that an Aleph is, well, how is an Aleph written? A printed Aleph is a Yud on top, and a Yud on bottom, and a line in between, above and between, I think. In other words, what is an Aleph? An Aleph is the Yud on top, that's the Rebbe. The Yud on bottom, that's the Yud. The Yud is a Yud. The Rebbe's name is also in the Yud. That's the Yud on top. And the Rebbe's Yud is a Yud. And the line in between, that's the line of attachment between the Rebbe's and Yud. And this concept of the attachment with the Rebbe's and Yud, this is something which exists only between the Rebbe's and Yud. This does not exist. This attachment does not exist between the Rebbe's and Goyim. And that's why when we're talking about Vayikra and Moshe, this is a Lashon Chiba. This is an expression which is used by Malachim. And by Malachim we find that there is no kino, there is no sinah, there is no hatred, there is no envy going on by Malachim. So the same way when the Rebbe wants to bring out his love, which is above any type of envy, level of envy and hatred, a pure love from the Rebbe to Yidden. That's brought out when the Rebbe refers to the Nevi'ah Yisrael, an expression of Vayikra, which is additional hours. Here the Rebbe brings types from the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov type is a Mishnah. HaKoyres HaMagillah L'Nafreya Lo Yotza. Mishnah tells us in the text of Megillah that if somebody reads the Megillah, but he reads the Megillah backwards, he's not Yotza. Instead of Vayhi Mei Achashverosh, he reads Achashverosh Mei Vayhi. He's not bringing out the sword of the Megillah, so he's not Yotza. But the Baal Shem Tov type is different. That's the simple meaning. The Baal Shem Tov type is, if somebody reads the Megillah, but he reads the Megillah backwards. In other words, he says it's an old story to say it, it's a backward story to say that happened several thousand years ago, but has no relation, it has no meaning, it has no significance for us today. When somebody takes such an attitude to the Megillah, lo yotza, then we're not going to clear the Megillah. In other words, we have to look at clear the Megillah, that there's a constant message in Megillah to us. And what does it mean about Achashverosh? Achashverosh is the king in the Megillah. So Medrash tells us that Achashverosh is really an indication for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Achris v'reishis Eloi. The end and the beginning is all his. In other words, he is the one that is the most of the Kippur. He is the one that's ruling over the entire world. And the main one with looking at the Megillah, that there's a message, a relevant message in the Megillah to us now. And this is how we approach Purim. We get the message to us, and we bring the same message to other people, wherever only we could reach. And we bring them the message with the relevance of Purim, and we make sure that they fulfill the mitzvahs of Purim. What all of these mitzvahs are involved, as we spoke about before, and to have the feast of Purim, the mitzvah of Purim, all of these in Yemen. And the Rebbe concluded the Farbrengen, goes on to use the expression, L'chaim Tovim, L'chaim Tovim V'aruchim, and L'chaim V'lavracha.
About mentioning Shabbos, is this the point out there is an eighth restaurant?
It's the point out that the highest level of, he was heading to that Mashiach will come, and Mashiach will come now, before Minchas. Even though we will have the Kabbalah right away, still we will have the union of Minchas.
And that was out by the plural?
Plural is a high madrega. I'm sorry, if it's wrong. Rebbe was heading that this awakening, we spoke later, that this awakening is spoken about as this. He's bringing out that the time of Mincha is a special time. It's the time of the initial Vom. Vom is uniting all madregas.
That's
not boy, it's not the ball, it's Vom. Vom is plural.
That's what makes it so.
Rather, because it's an eighth Russian, it's united.
When you're talking about the Yudke and the Vayikra and the Negroes and in the stars, seems like you mentioned that once the Vayikra relates to the Stars and Yudke is
Negroes, yes.
Yudke is
Negroes. Yudke is a high madrega.
So that's what Negroes is revealed, yeah?
Yes. And the Stars is hidden.
So the lower level is hidden.
Lower level is hidden.
We're talking about in the opposite way here, right?
It used to be very stupid. You could always have the one explaining.
Talking about a different sort of revealed and hidden.
When you say hidden, it means you did not see the sacrifice in it yet. It's hidden. Just like we're talking about Megillah Esther. You could go through and read it as a beautiful story and not realize that there's a yellow thing behind it. So first you go through the Avodah of hidden. It's the Avodah of Yud Aleph. We go the Avodah of Hashem from Mata Lamayla. From Yud Aleph we come to the Yud Aleph at the beginning of the until we come to a Madrega of Tesvav. Tesvav is in this case. That's the highest Madrega. The Rabbi used to express it genius to the genius.
Like in Tanya's instance, when it talks about where the Yisraelim comes from, that's a different union about revealed. Okay.
I'm
from Turkey. And then Ezra. And you are Zedkat. I'm going to Mars camp tonight to start learning there.
Very good. Let me see.
I have some questions. First, what means Yad Hashem?
Yad Hashem, the hand of Hashem.
Okay, Yad Hashem.
Yad means hand.
Okay. Now, I listened very carefully to the entire study. Is that the right word? Chazarah. I'm sorry, thank you. Okay. I'm trying to tie that one into my head.
You learn a lot of new.
I learned from listening to your presentation the meaning of prayer. I learned the meaning of governance. I had a little trouble towards the end when we were going often into Yiddish, explaining about, talking about the relevance of the story of Purim today.
So it's not an expression in Mishnah. It's an expression in Mishnah. This tells us the rules and regulations how the Megillah is to be read. The Rebbe is expressing, if you read it backwards, it's not proper.
Okay, do you mean literally to read backwards?
That's the meaning in the Mishnah. But I'll come to explain. But it was the Mishnah trying to say it has to be read in the exact order as it was written. We cannot change around or jiggle around the order. It has to be the same order. We cannot read it backwards or change or make any of our own changes. We have to read it the way we have it. So we will be reading it this Monday night. About them to title, somebody reads the Megillah backwards, he says it spiritually. You know what? He looks at it that it's a backward thing. It's an old story. It has no relation to us today. It has no relevance to us today. And that means that the person is also reading it. It doesn't mean he's not yosef in Megillah in the halachic sense, but it means he did not, the message of Purim did not get to him. But we have to look at Purim, we have to look at the Megillah, that there's a relevant message to us now, and at all times, in all the years, since it happened. In all the years, there's a relevant message in the story of Purim. And that is when we spoke about how the Megillah expresses, yes, Am Echad, that it is the one and only nation, and why every expression is accurate. Why does he use the expression Am Echad? There's one nation. But if there is a nation, there's just one nation, and he's using the Echad. Echad that ties how Yidden have a special linkage between Yidden and Echad. Why? Because it's the same Echad as Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Because there's this unity, there's this knot that ties together the nation to whom, to the Rebbeinu, to Almighty God.
Okay, now, suppose someone reads the Torah and simply says, well, this is the historical event which happened at such and such a time. We learn something from it that it's past. Look to the future. Okay? In other words, what I'm trying to do here is I think that there's something deeper in what you mean when you say that there's a relevance and a meaning today of this story that is profound. And by hitting it,
you familiarize yourself a little more with Hasidic philosophy. If we could say one more word, the word Torah is a very popular word in our vocabulary. The Rebbe always stresses, what is it? Just think for a minute, what is the type of the word? What does it mean? What is the type? Type means, in translation, Torah is a word which is very, very often used in Jewish vocabulary, but the word has a meaning. The meaning of it is, the Rebbe says, is based on a Zohar. The Torah comes from the word Torah, which means lesson. If you familiarize yourself with it more, you might understand if you familiarize yourself much more. Students especially stresses how every Indian in Torah, we learn about things that happened, we see Mitzrayim, we will learn about Matan Torah, we will learn about the Mishkan, we will learn about things that happened to the patriarchs, the matriarchs, the Mishkan, all of that. There's a relevant meaning, there's a message in all of that to Yidden at all times. It's not just that we're learning things that happen to them. And naturally, that is the simple meaning of it, and we're not taking anything out of its context. It does have the simple meaning that we're talking about. But at the same time, there's also a deeper meaning, where there's a lesson, there's guidance for us in all of this.
All of that to keep dwelling in the past.